Hello and welcome to another Snickerdoodle Knits knitting video tutorial. I'm super excited to show you in this video how to work two color brioche in the round. So if you have never worked brioche before, I know that there's a lot of folks who feel like it is really intimidating, or they've heard that it's really difficult and all sorts of rumors out there. And I believe that if you don't have the correct support, it feels nearly impossible. But once I reframe a few things for you, hopefully it will make a whole lot more sense. Chances are you already know the techniques that we're going to use. So if you know how to slip a stitch, if you know how to create a yarn over, if you know how to knit two together, and if you know how to purl two together, you know how to brioche. We just need to put the skills together. All right, so if you're looking for a pattern to practice two color brioche in the round, or maybe you want to see what it looks like, here is my any yarn brioche. It is a brioche cowl. It is a pattern designed to use literally any yarn weight you want, create any size you want. It includes multiple sizes in it. It has a whole customization range. Actually, knitting in the round with brioche is a great place to start because working flat is a little more difficult. If you want to see more about that, I do have a video here on the channel. I can go ahead and link that in the description. And I can link the patterns as well. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. We have contrasting colors so that we can see the difference between the stitches well. I've gone ahead and cast on 50 stitches. If you're working something like a cowl in DK weight, which is what I'm using here, this is certainly not going to be enough. This would be more like maybe a cuff on a mitten, but this is just for the sake of showing you here in this tutorial. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to join this in the round. Since I'm working with a small circumference on large circumference needles, I'm going to use magic loop. Alrighty, so here we are in the round, identified the tail, keep that out of the way so we don't knit with it. So our setup round, and of course make sure your stitches are straight, nothing's twisted, so that this is actually in the round when you work. All right, so our setup round is going to use knit one, slip one yarn over, knit one, slip one yarn over, repeat to the end of the row. So it's two stitches, knit one, slip one yarn over, and repeat that to the end of the round. And we will use our main color for this setup round. So our first stitch is a knit one, which you probably know, you're already familiar with. All right, our next stitch is slip one yarn over, which, yes, it sounds like two stitches, and it actually looks like two stitches as well. So let's go ahead and bring the yarn in the front so we can slip a stitch purlwise, and then we work a yarn over. And then we work our knit one. So that is the slip one yarn over. That is that stitch. There are two legs, so it kind of looks like two stitches, but that is considered one stitch, slip one yarn over. Knit one, slip one yarn over. And so to make it faster, I like to go ahead and just put the yarn over on my needle while I have it in the stitch. Like that. Knit one, slip one yarn over, knit one, slip one yarn over, and we'll continue this to the end of the round. Alrighty, so that is the end of our setup round. We ended on a slip one yarn over. We'll want to be careful of that so that when we work it later, there is that yarn over with that slip stitch. Alrighty, so bring this to the front of the needle. And now we are ready to start the actual brioche repeat. So for two color brioche in the round, it's sort of a two round repeat. It's technically one. So we have 1A is working with one color, 1B is working with the second color. So we work every round twice essentially. It doesn't feel so much like twice when you're working the round because you're just going round and round. If you're working flat, it's a little bit more obvious. Anyway, all of that to say is we have a sort of 2 round repeat. We are going to start with our contrast color. So like I mentioned, we want to be careful that this stays a slip-on yarn over. I'm going to just wrap this over the needle, but I'm going to pay special attention when I get back here at the end of the round as well with my contrast color. Alrighty, so now I get to connect my contrast color and leave a tail to weave it in later. And then round 1A is we are going to bring the yarn in the front because we are going to start with a slip-on yarn over. So that slip-on yarn over that we just learned for the setup round. So slip-on yarn over and then brioche purl. Now, before we work the brioche purl, you have another slip-on yarn over here that we want to be careful of. So it's going to be a tail. It will probably find its way to the back. We're just going to want to be very mindful of that when it comes time to work that stitch. All right, so we have a slip-on yarn over, now we have a brioche purl. So brioche purl is essentially knitting 2 together, but it specifically is the slip-on yarn over from our previous round. So in this instance, it's from the setup round. Now, when we work in the future, our slip-on yarn over for 2-color brioche is always going to have 2 colors in it. So it'll be super easy to identify. It's not quite as easy here, but we do see that we have these 2 legs together. So we're going to purl those together. And again, that is called a brioche purl. Now I have a slip-on yarn over, brioche purl. And that's what we do all the way around. It's those 2 stitches, slip-on yarn over, brioche purl. Slip-on yarn over, whoops, brioche purl for the whole round. Alrighty, slip-on yarn over, and then remember this is a brioche purl here. So the yarn over is still here, but it can be easy to forget. So just make sure that you have both strands when you brioche purl that last stitch of the round. And there we go. You have completed half of the brioche repeat. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and go back to the beginning of round. And just like anytime you're working in the round, we're going to need to be careful about, anytime you're working magic loop, we're going to need to be careful about the gaps here, keeping it tight so we don't have these big yarn gaps. All right, so let's go ahead and get to where we can start the beginning of the round again. And this is called round 1B. So when we look at the actual fabric of brioche, I don't know if you'll be able to tell here, especially if you're not very familiar with brioche, but each round has this kind of round that is in the front and then a separate round that's in the back. And so that's why it's called 1A and 1B instead of 1 and 2. That's just a tidbit. Alrighty, so you ready to start round 1B? We're going to want our main color. And this starts with a brioche knit. So we know, here, let me get all my ends out of the way. Alrighty, so brioche knit, we know that there should be a slip-on yarn over for us to knit this together. We also, if you remember, at the beginning of the last round was a slip-on yarn over. And I said we needed to be careful about this one because it, as I said, it slipped right to the back. So we just bring this back to the front. It was right in the back. So we're going to bring it right to the front here so that we can knit that together as one stitch. So brioche knit is essentially knitting two together, but it's specifically a slip-on yarn over. So brioche knit, we're going to knit these two together and then slip-on yarn over. And that is the round repeat. Brioche knit, slip-on yarn over. Brioche knit, slip-on yarn over. And so on and so forth to the end of the round. Alrighty, so that is the end of round 1B. Oops. There we go. Now we start to repeat over. So that is the full brioche repeat. We worked setup round 1A, and round 1B. You'll continue to work round 1A and round 1B as long as you'd like the two color brioche. So we will go ahead and go back through. I'll work several rounds so you can really see the brioche, what it looks like once it's worked up a bit. You can't really see the pattern super well at this point. But as I work the next repeat, I am going to talk about how to pay attention to read your knitting, which is a super helpful tool to know where you've left off, if you've set down your knitting, or even just to make the knitting process faster. So let's say I set down my knitting, haven't worked on it for several days, have no idea where I was in the pattern. Well, if I take a look at these stitches, we can tell that the dominant color on the needles is the blue color. That means that blue is the last color I worked because it's included in every stitch. So it's in the slip-on yarn overs and it's included in the stitches that were worked together. We don't need to worry about just yet if it's knit or purl, but that tells me I'm going to work with my gray color. That's the next color to work. Alrighty, the next thing to pay attention to is, am I starting on a slip-on yarn over? Am I starting with a brioche knit or a brioche purl? If we look at the first stitch, sometimes we know that that stitch might fall off the needle, right? If it was a slip-on yarn over. So the yarn over might slip off. So I always look at the second and the third stitches. The second stitch here is a slip-on yarn over. So we know the first one is going to be the slip-on yarn over instead. Now, is it going to be, when we work our second stitch that has the slip-on yarn over, is it going to be a brioche knit or a brioche purl? Well, we can't see super well yet because we haven't worked that many repeats yet, but this is a brioche purl because we have the purl bump here in this column. It's a little bit easier to see here that this is a knit, so this is going to look like a purl here. Alrighty, so we're going to have a slip-on yarn over, and then we're going to have a brioche purl, slip-on yarn over, brioche purl, all with the gray color. If you look at your pattern instructions for round 1A, you will see that that is what the instructions also say. So with the contrast color and the yarn in the front, slip-on yarn over, brioche purl, and repeat from the start to the end of the round. Or just repeat to the end of the round. Alrighty, so slip-on yarn over, brioche purl, slip-on yarn over, brioche purl, etc. And if you're working by reading your knitting, that works mid-round as well. You'd be able to tell what color you're already working with, but you can tell just by looking at the stitches, is this a slip-on yarn over? Is this a brioche knit? Or is this a brioche purl? And if this concept of reading your knitting, especially with brioche, is intimidating or overwhelming or confusing, don't worry about it. It's not important. It's just some information to help you out if you want to use it, but don't let it confuse you or hinder you if you're not to that space yet. Alrighty, so now we are ready to start round 1B again. Now, for the sake of talking about reading or knitting, let's pretend we set this project down. We haven't looked at it for a few days. We pick it up, we try to figure out where we're at. So we can see that gray is the dominant color that's included in every stitch. So we know that we're going to use blue now for this round. Then if we look at our first couple of stitches, it looks like this is a slip-one yarn over. So we're going to be working those 2 stitches together. Let's go ahead and confirm. Yes, this is a purl. So this will be worked as a slip-one yarn over. So this is going to be worked together because this is a purl, this is a knit. Or if you look here, we've got our knit V stitches. You can see it a little bit better on the 3rd stitch here. You got our V-shaped knit stitches. So 1 and 3 are going to be the same stitch. So this is going to be a brioche knit, slip-one yarn over, brioche knit, slip-one yarn over, etc. So let's grab our main color, blue color, brioche knit, slip-one yarn over, brioche knit, slip-one yarn over, to the end of the round. All right, so that was round 1B. We completed the repeat once again. You can start to see a little bit better how this pattern is starting to work up. I'll go ahead and work a few more rounds with the camera off so you can see what it really looks like. But if we were to pick up our knitting at this point, we would pay attention to what the dominant color is, pay attention to whether we need to be doing a slip-one yarn over, a brioche knit, or a brioche purl. Remember that knit stitches create this V shape, purl stitches create this purl bump. You'll also notice that when you're working in the round, the contrast color always uses purls and the main color always uses knits. So you could use that as well. Anyway, I'll go ahead and work a few more rounds for you so you can see how it looks with a little bit more progression. Alrighty, so here I have completed a few more repeats to show a bit more what this brioche, 2-color brioche in the round texture looks like. And this is the other side, inside, technically the wrong side, but I love about brioche that it is so reversible, so beautiful. Here is the finished project again. And I love that it is gives a fairly simple but beautiful look that, in my opinion, seems pretty modern and super fun to play with color. And you have you have versatility in your color options. It's kind of like a 2-in-1 addition to your wardrobe. And I love that it's kind of engaging. It's got different stuff going on as you're working on it, but it's very repetitive. And once you've worked a fair bit of it, it's pretty simple just to keep in that rhythm and keep knitting. So I hope you found this tutorial super helpful, insightful. I hope that you feel much more confident now working brioche, trying brioche if it's your first time. And if you've tried it before and struggled with it, I hope that this broke it down so that it feels a bit easier for you. Again, if you need a project, I'll go ahead and link the Any Yarn Brioche Cowl in the description. If you have any questions at all, please put those down in the comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And otherwise, I wish you a very beautiful day and happy knitting.